I'm absolutely sweating my balls off. And I'm still drinking tea because I'm British. There's no rules. People, welcome to the Unlevel Podcast, episode 40. I don't know why we're opening like that, but we are. I know why we're opening like that, actually. Because I just tried to record the episode and I got about 4 minutes in and I waffled for 4 minutes. Because I sat on a point that doesn't need to be over-explained. Alright? So, let me backtrack. Let me gather my thoughts. Let me compose myself so I can get this across to you in the right way. Today we're going to be talking about how can an artist grow better? Not quicker, not just blow up, but how can an artist grow organically? How can an artist grow the right way, as I would see it? And just to be very clear, and this is my disclaimer now, and I'll probably end up saying it a few more times, but this is my disclaimer right off the bat. I am not an established artist yet. So take my advice from the perspective of a fan, someone who is a fan of music, a fan of culture, over the perspective of someone who's made it, because I've not made it. And I've got a very, very long way to go myself before I get there. So I am currently having to take my own advice and some of the things that we're going to talk about in this video, if not all of them. Okay? Because I know there's going to be the comment, oh, but how's Chazza gonna be telling us what to do when he's shit at music? Listen, I'm just trying to give the best advice I could possibly give and put that into practice. I'm almost law of attraction if you really want to go that far. Like the things I'm saying here, I'm hoping that you're gonna see from me physically, already have seen from me, and will continue to see from me over the next few years. Okay. So yeah, I'm speaking from the fan of perspective, someone who reads human behavior, who reads patterns, someone who speaks to a lot of people, someone who is currently with the Australian scene, keeping a very close eye on movement and how things work and how certain cogs and things in place make other things tick. Yeah. And I'm sure some people will respect my opinion, like, no matter what. I could talk about how to make a sandwich and people would do so, and I'm sure that I could then talk about something like this and people wouldn't want to hear it from me. And if so, that's fine, because I've got opinions from established artists in this video as well, and I'll have timestamps down below if you're like, Chaz, I don't care about you, but maybe I care about the artist that you've got in this video given a piece of advice. So, yeah, timestamps down below if you do want to skip anything or something doesn't pique your interest. So, yeah. In my opinion, there are 5 tiers to this music game. All right, and this is the thing that I waffled on for about 4 minutes. I'm gonna try and skim through this. 5 tiers. Tier number 1 is your top tier, like, of the world, and I'm applying this to hip hop around the world, not just Australia, and that will make sense in a moment. Tier 5 is all of the people in their bedrooms who have written a 16, and when they get drunk and they're in the smoking area outside the club, it's, yo, my guy, yeah, would have made it, but obviously, yeah, like, man never just did the music thing like that, but if I did, listen, I was on the circuit, like, hey, listen to my 16, I'm a lyrical, miracle, physical, spiritual. You get the idea. And, you know, anyone who kind of puts out an Instagram freestyle or freestyles around their friends but never really put it out. Maybe the odd track on SoundCloud, alright? Tier 4 is anyone who's trying to take it more seriously, is being more consistent. They're regularly putting stuff out. They've got their Spotify and Apple Music pages set up. They've done music videos. They might be doing open mics. They might be doing being a support act for people's shows and tours. Yeah, that's like your stage 4. Stage 3 is you are an established artist within a scene, and in this modern day and era, you're doing tens of thousands, pushing into the hundreds of thousands. Yeah, someone who is respected. Let's look at somebody like Talakai. All right, Talakai from Australia, and let's look at somebody like I'm really Loyal Kana from the UK. Tier 3 artists, like, people know about them. They're not household names, but if you know your stuff, you'll know about them, and they're gaining an organic following. Not every person they have to reach out for, because at stage 4, oftentimes your fan base is your friends and family and anyone who you have directly come in contact with. Like, you have to physically DM that person, or at a show you physically have to go over and introduce yourself. Make sense? As tier 3, you're kind of getting more of an organic reach. You're having people follow you who you don't even know. You don't even know they follow you, because maybe they just stream your stuff and buy your stuff without actually ever commenting or DMing or reaching out to you as a fan. Yeah? That's stage 3 in my opinion. And that's where majority of Australia is at. Yeah? You could argue people like Nerve, people like Shadow are tier 3 artists. They are established in the scene. They are well respected. But they are the fine borders between tier 2. And tier 2 is, there's only a few in Australia, in my opinion. And these are the artists that are culture shifting. Now, not just within their scene, but I'm just talking about the sound in general. Like, they might bring in a new trend, or they might bring in a new style, or they might popularize something in particular, whether it be a certain type of ad-lib, or a certain dance move, or a certain piece of fashion, something like that, that then allows the other artists below them to start copying them, you know, or start taking from them. And I believe that's where tier 2 artists is at. Artists like Stormzy from the UK. I mean, in Australia, the only ones I could really say is Cursor 1-4, maybe Chillin' It from Australia. Really, they're the only tier 2 artists you have. And the tier 2 artists also, again, if we're talking a numbers game, are doing hundreds of thousands to millions. Yeah. Again, I'm waffling a lot on this point here, so I'm going to try and skim through. So forgive me if I don't fully explain this. And in tier 1 are your mega stars. Yeah, just, you know, your Coles, Kendricks, Drakes, etc. Well, there's superstars and then there's megastars. Drake is a megastar. Cole and Kendrick and Cole are megastars as well. But you get the point where I'm going from. I don't think Australia has any megastars, nor do I really think the UK does. I think Stormzy and Skepta are our biggest, you know, entities, and even then I see them as tier 2. If we're talking about the world, in terms of the UK, they are megastars. Stormzy is a megastar in the UK, whether you like him or not. Same way 1-4 are megastars in Australia, whether you like it or not. But if we're talking about a global perspective, 1-4 are nothing. On the world scale of every element of hip-hop in the world, 1-4 is still nothing. Stormzy and Skepta barely scratch it themselves. Yeah? So, now that we got that out of the way, I am somebody who's between tier 4 and tier 3 in my opinion. I'd say I'm not quite established within a scene, but I am getting to the point where there's organic growth of my music. So, yeah, from a numbers perspective, again, that might be the thing that holds it back, but I don't base it on that. I base it on more impact, but I don't feel like I've worked myself into the scene yet, so I'm not there. But I'd say I'm anywhere between 4 and 3, wherever, how close you want to see it as. That's what I see myself. Maybe people would disagree, but I'd say I definitely do this on a consistent enough fucking basis and do everything to a professional enough level to the point where it's not a tier 5, like not just a Donny outside the club spitting bars. Yeah. The reason I felt like I had to explain that is because I'm going to come back to that pyramid at different points in this podcast, perhaps when I talk about different things, because I might be using different examples of artists at different stages in their career, or at just different stages in popularity impact of the culture. So that's why I needed to explain that. Before I go into my 2 big points that I really want to get across in this podcast, I want to go to the artists themselves first. So we're going to start off with Fraksha. And if you don't know who Fraksha is, Fraksha's a Brit who moved over to Australia however long ago and basically brought grime culture over to Australia. He brought grime culture over, and he, you know, helped establish just, yeah, the culture in general over in Australia. Him and, you know, some of his close friends and other people around him. Someone who has consistently had a successful music career, in my opinion, over a decade. Obviously, I've not been there the entire time. I've only known about Fraksha in, about 2.5 years that I've been checking out Australia now. But, you know, doing my homework and speaking to him, he's done a podcast episode on this. If I'm really good, I'll link that down below. Yeah, I can see that he's done his thing over the years, and I know he's helped a lot behind the scenes as well, and I feel like that's the place where he's currently sitting at, where he's transitioning away from music and more into extra adventures within the culture. But here's the video he sent me, and here's his take on how an artist should grow better, not quicker.
I reckon some of the best advice I could give is, you know, being consistent with what you do, consistently releasing music of a good quality level, making sure your videos are consistently nice. You know, and like I say, you're consistently releasing music. You're not just releasing one tune a year and then, you know, thinking you can fuck off for 2 years and lose your momentum. Some people can do it, but, you know, not everyone can, you know. And planning and executing what you do. You know, think ahead of of what you want to do and where you want to get to. You know what I mean? Not something I've really ever done, but you know, don't learn from me, learn from people who have made it, or learn from my mistakes. You know what I mean? Look at someone like Nerve. You know what I mean? He plans and executes what he does. He gets out there and does shows consistently. You know, he releases a project and then he's out there doing a tour. Does it again, keeps building up that, you know, building up that momentum and building up his fan base. You know what I mean? And you know, it's another thing. You know, don't ever underestimate doing shows. You know, and meeting people in real life. A lot of people get caught up in the internet hype. And then you see what happens. I've seen that time and time again. You know, people with like hundreds of thousands of views, and they go out and do a show and there's no one there. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to, you know, meet people in real life. You know, someone like Shadow is another good example. You know, he's out there doing shows, and it shows in, you know, the gradual increase in popularity and the fan base he's getting.
Consistency is a big one, people. Like, I mentioned that in my tier 4 thing, doing your thing consistently. Like, if you want to grow, you have got to consistently put content out. Now, some may argue, yo, let's look at someone like Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar may put out an album, disappear for 2.5 years, free, no features, nothing really, and then maybe put out a single, do a promo run, drop an album, do a couple features, and then disappear again for another couple years. And my response to that would be, Kendrick Lamar has made classic fucking albums. Like, To Pimp a Butterfly is like critically renowned as one of the best albums of all time, not just within hip hop, but just music in general. When you are that level of quality, when you are that level of creative, when you are at that level of genius, I think that's fair to say, you don't need to be consistently on a week by week, month by month basis putting out content. He's consistently put out good albums. That's where the consistency lies. So his is in quality, not quantity. And if you want to be that artist, that's fine, but don't be disheartened when you spend 9 months working on an EP and it doesn't then blow. You've also got to remember that Kendrick has been about for 10 to 15 years. Kendrick's been about for a while. So maybe not 15, more so 10 to 12 years. To my knowledge, off the top of my head, by the way, I could be completely and utterly wrong. J. Cole, another one who does more features than Kendrick does, if I'm not mistaken. But again, drops an album, disappears for a couple of years and comes back. But again, we're talking about two artists there that are known for their classic work. And if you genuinely believe that you are of the ability to drop classic and timeless music, go for it. But the realism of it is that 99.999% of us will not be able to do that. I say us because I couldn't do that either. That is my dream. Fuck having 100 million streams on a song. If you could tell me you could have one thing in this world, like genie, magic, wish. You got 3 wishes. All 3 of my wishes are going on or into one. I would love to have a classic album. Like, I want my own To Pimp a Butterfly. But I'm not going to be the kind of artist that's going to get there by working on it for not doing anything for 2 years and putting it out. I'm not there yet anyway. I doubt I'll ever get there. You know? As an artist, you've always got to see yourself as number one. And don't get me wrong, you ask me this question on a different day, when I'm in my rapper mode, when I'm in artist mode, I'll probably tell you I'm the motherfucking shit. Yeah? But in my humble bag right now, speaking from the perspective of a fan, not an artist, I'm not at that level of quality. I'm not at that level of talent. I'm improving, and you guys often say that as well, and I appreciate all that feedback and support, but that's what I'm saying. I need that feedback. Feedback is super important, people. Consistency. If you want to grow, put your content out to the market. Make your Instagram page public. Put a freestyle out. Put a bunch of hashtags on it. Hashtag grime. Hashtag grime freestyle. Hashtag grime 140. Hashtag 140 freestyle. Hashtag such and such type beat. Yeah, if you really, really want to play the game, do that. Put it out there. Then you're going to go and share that with anyone who you think is interested. Whether they answer or not, whether they like it or not. You're going to go and share that. All right? And out of the 50 people, let's say, nice rounding number there, 50 people you go and show, maybe 2 people actually care. Maybe only one of them shares it. But that one person who shares it maybe gets another 3 people on board. That's how you're going to have to start off on this internet era. I mean, 15 years ago, it's different. It's a whole different ball game. Having to stand outside the station, print your own CDs, and go and hand it and try and, you know, some man were giving their mixtapes out for free outside of the tube station. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different hustle now. We've got this shit easy, people. You understand? Like, not to make Fraksha feel old or anything, but that's a different time in music. When Getz and Wiley and JME and Skepta at a bus, it weren't because of an Instagram freestyle. But I'm giving advice based on the current market, on today's current methods. Yeah, so you'll hear older artists often talk about, you man have it easy and look at how we had to do it. And that's true. That's true. Now, in some ways it becomes more difficult because it's easier, the market gets oversaturated. Very oversaturated. And sometimes you have to wade through a lot of shit. And we're going to come back to that soon. But let's stick to the consistency. So whatever you need to do, consistently put out content. If you ain't got a finished track, put out what you were working on. If you ain't got none of that, put out some throwaway bars. If you ain't got that, talk to people to get some fucking inspiration. Some people can only write when they're high and it has to be the certain right and the moon has to be aligned in a certain way. Maybe you're one of them people. I'm a person, if I'm hungry enough, tell me to write a 16 and I'll write a 16. If somebody said write a 16 now, I'd say give me 5 minutes and I'd get out. Now, maybe the quality of that 16 ain't going to be great, but I can promise you I could get something together in 5 minutes. And that links into the last point I'm going to make on consistency. Some people may argue it's difficult to be consistent when I struggle for inspiration. And I know we're kind of delving into another bit now, but this is the consistency perspective I have on that. Write the shittest 8 bars of your life, but get 8 bars finished. And then look at it and go, right, how do I improve on that? And keep improving it until you think it's good enough. And it might be a completely different outcome from when you first started to where you finished, but at least you made some progress. Consistency. And that's a word that we're not going to be finished with. And that's why I showed Fraksha's video first, because I want to come back to that. He also uses Nerve as an example. Someone who's just had a relentless work rate. And you could see the benefits. You could see the success that Nerve's had this year. Nerve's had one of the best years in Australian music, like this year. Easily. Like, just struggle to argue with me. Yes, people will say I'm fanboying. I don't care. This man has put in a disgusting amount of work. He uses Shadow as another example. Shadow signed a deal last year, I believe it was, and he seems to be using them resources correctly to grow as an artist. 2 artists that are a great example of consistency. Oh, and before I get the comment of saying, but look, those guys have money and they have the resources, where do you think they fucking started from? That's what I say to every single one of you. Whenever you go, oh, but Drake has OVO and he has millions and he was signed by Wayne. How did Drake get to the point he was at? Alright, so unless you're light skinned and you got bars and you can chat to girls and you got designer clothes, if you haven't got all of those things, unfortunately, my brother, we have to work. If you're light skinned and good looking, alright, maybe you get a little, maybe you're a little step up, alright? But I'm only messing. But you get my point that I'm making. Like, everyone has to start from fucking somewhere. So, be consistent, put out content until you get noticed by those labels. If you want to go down the label route. And again, I could do a whole nother podcast in why you don't need a label deal. But, again, conversations for another day. I want to get into the next one. I want to get into the next artist who sent something in. And this is Seru. Seru is an artist I massively respect, actually. An artist who I would love to work with in the future, even. Someone who's actually worked with Fraksha, funny enough. Seru is in a different stage to Fraksha, because Fraksha is, with all due respect, you could argue over his peak and is on his winding down now. Even though the man still puts out quality content, don't get it twisted. If Frax did a verse, like, it'd be fucking solid. Like when Frax featured on my album, it was a solid fucking verse. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's fair to say even he would admit himself, he's over that drive of that peak of his career. And he's now looking to wind down and venture into other things. Whereas you got Seru, who is an upcoming artist who's looking to attack the game head on, who's looking to spearhead his way into the scene. And I feel like I would like to say that's a fair representation of where those two artists are at. So you got Seru, who's the up and comer, and he gives a piece of advice. So this is advice from someone who is trying to make it themselves as well. Someone who is, again, a tier 3 artist, you know, someone who is pretty much starting to establish himself in a scene. And yeah, this is what he has to say on this.
Just want to give some quick thoughts on what I feel like it means to grow as an artist. So big shout out to Chazza for reaching out to me. Basically what I feel like it means to grow as an artist, firstly, is to grow as a person. Because at the end of the day, if you're not growing as a person, then it's kind of hard for you to show that through your music. And to me, music's always been a personal thing, a reflection of growth or whatever you're going through. So basically, first and foremost, that's probably the most important thing. Grow as a person, and your music will grow as well.
Growing as a person. This is huge. Huge. And I have to cut off Seru here because I feel, because he makes another point after that's kind of a whole different explanation. So let's take it one thing at a time. Growing as a person. Now, this, out of the 4 or 5 points I'm going to make across this podcast today, this is arguably the least important and the most important. If you are an artist such as myself, if you are an artist like an Alex Jones, like a Cursor, you could argue. If you are an introspective artist, if you talk about feelings, emotion, perspective, humanity, humility, fucking, I don't know, name every moral and value in the book. If you're that kind of artist, if you are the Kendrick Cole kind of artist, growing as a person is massively important. And this is where you may need to spend time in between music if you really want to show the growth. I'm going to use Jay-Z as an example. Jay-Z's album 444, which released 2017, I believe 2017, is top 2. You could argue, actually, my favorite album from Jay-Z. Say top 2 with Reasonable Doubt itself, which was 99, I believe. Now, Jay-Z's 444 is not the best album he's made, but it's one of my favorites. Now, why? Because I see growth, I see maturity within him. Jay-Z is what? Touching 50 now? I don't want to hear him about drillings and shotting bricks on the street corner. Now, back in 99 when he's doing Reasonable Doubt, he's talking about that. And that's fine, because that's a young man. If you're a young man, and that's the lifestyle you are genuinely living, talk about it. But by the time you're over 35, I don't want to hear that shit. Grow up. Go take care of your kids. Make them some warm porridge in the morning. The last thing I want to hear is that. So, as you grow as a person, I want to hear that maturity. I want to hear you grow up as a person along as your sound and your musical ability grow. Like, yes, when you start off, believe it or not, if you are an artist now and you've only put out one track, or you're only about to put out one track, understand, you may look at that in 10 years' time and go, that was shit. And right now, you might think, what? This is nuts. I might look at the Skinny Legend Freestyle, out right now, by the way, YouTube and Spotify. I might look at the Skinny Legend Freestyle and in 10 years' time go, that was whack. Yeah, that's a nice bar. But as a whole, whack. I might genuinely feel that. There's music I look at from 2 years ago that I made. Only a year and a half ago, even. There's songs on my Visionary album, which Visionary only come out 1 year ago. There are a handful of tracks on Visionary that I don't like now. Not that I dislike them, but I feel like they could be way better. Like, if I was to now put out an album, they would be cut from that album and it would probably be nearer an EP. That's the truth. Maybe I'm a bit harsh on myself, and they might be some of the songs that you guys love. But the point I'm making from this is, as you grow, you are going to get better and better, assuming you are consistent. See, I'm going to bring that back consistently. Boom, no pun intended. Growing as a person, man, it makes a huge difference. I don't want to hear you talking about strip clubs and fucking bussing shots for 10 years. I don't. I can listen to it for a year to 3. I don't want to hear that forever. Or maybe I want to hear how you've had to be in situations, and then now that you've made it in the music, you're torn between leaving it and staying in it. Or, yeah, look, I'ma sell albums, but my real money comes from the track. If you want to go down that angle, that's fine, but I want to hear that story develop at least. I'm not saying, oh, well, if you've been doing music more than 5 years, you can't talk about violence. No, I'm not going to say that. But I want to hear that story develop. Don't get stuck on chapter 1. Don't allow that to happen, people. If I'm going to give a UK example, Wretch 32 is a great example of that. When I listen to his earliest music versus what I hear now, I hear growth. I hear a man who is now a father, someone who is now who has gone from being confused at the world around him to now doing his best to understand it, and is now passing that knowledge on to us as fans and listeners, as well as his family and friends. Gets, Kano, there's plenty of UK examples I can give. Let's continue with Seru's video, because the next point you make is another big one, and I could sit on this one for a while.
All right, and focus on the next step, what's in front of you. Don't worry about focusing on what's at the end of the road. It's good to know what's at the end of the road, but you don't want to always look, because you're going to miss what's in front of you. So it's good to just focus on what's in front of you. Basically, you know, reach one goal, set a small goal, reach one goal, reach a second goal, a third, yada, so on, like that. And then, you know, before you know it, you're up here at the same level where someone else is who might have not taken these steps that you took, because they went and did it for the wrong reasons. They did it because they wanted attention, or, you know, maybe the passion for the art wasn't there, but maybe it was more just a passion for, you know, wanting to be seen, or to feel some sort of insecurity or something like that. So you're at this same level as someone who you thought was, you know, where you wanted to be. But at the end of the day, you've got all these steps and experiences behind you and learning curves and goals that you've kicked, whereas the person here has just jumped because they've gone about it the wrong way. It's always easy to get to the top, because that's not the hard thing. The hard thing is to hold that. And you've got a lot more support on your side if you've got all this experience behind you, whereas, you know, who's going to go down quicker if shit goes down? So yeah, grow as a person, make small goals, reach your small goals. And yeah, don't worry about what's on at the end. You'll get there as long as you just keep focusing on what's in front of you and taking each step by step. All right, so I hope I haven't butchered that one too much, but big shout out to Chazza. Thanks for reaching out. I got some music dropping soon too. Follow me on Instagram, Il Capo Seru, and on YouTube, Seru Music. Boom.
Patience. One step at a time, people. Like, this is why I'm saying how to grow better, not quicker. I'm sure I'm gonna have to title this podcast. I think I'm gonna have to title the podcast something along these lines, because there is a difference. Like, yo, do you know how many DMs I get of people saying, yo, how do I blow up? You're asking the wrong question. You're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. It's the difference between how and why. How and why are two different things. If you want to ask how to do this, we can give you advice. But there is no black and white way to blow up. Because if there was, what do you think people would do? Everyone would technically blow up. And if everyone does that, now you're all at the same average standard. So once upon a time, putting your music on YouTube was a surefire way of helping you grow. And then once everyone cottoned onto that, everyone was doing it. Once people started realizing you could be more successful through social media than you could in real life, through your music. You could be known as a YouTube rapper, which is something I don't want to be considered as. Hence why I do performances, open mics, support acts, etc., etc. Because I don't want to just be an artist who puts out music from my bedroom and then that's final. That's not me. Yeah? Patience. I've lost my train of thought there for a moment. Patience. Where am I at? Fuck. I've lost myself where I'm at. You watching this now is probably rewind 20 seconds and know exactly where I'm at. Alright, let me go again. Patience. You're not going to blow up. That's it. Blowing up. You're not going to blow up overnight. Like, tell yourself you are not going... That is not going to happen. If you wake up in the morning and your song you expected to have 100 views and now it has 25,000, amazing. But don't aim to blow up. Because you're going to lose. You are then going to start falling into all of the trends. You're going to fall into all of the isms and schisms that you see from everybody else. And next thing you know, you're putting out dead average content because it sounds like everybody else. If you are trying to do things for the purpose of blowing up, you're damaging your own content. You are going to be more boring. You are going to be less accessible. You are going to be a clone. If you want to blow up, you do that by not actually aiming to do so. Now, when you're at these super mega star levels, there's labels and 50 people in meeting rooms looking at how to do that. And believe it or not, people, more time than not, they still fail more than they do succeed. If we look at some of the most viral moments, let's just take a social media video, a video that gets 500,000 shares and retweets on Twitter, yeah? 99% of those videos are ones that were unplanned. It was a moment that was captured, and you can do that in music. When Chill did one take, one breath, one take, yeah. A moment. When Cursor did his Come Smoke With Me and Highest Man and Dead Sets, etc., etc., they were consistent moments that he captured. When 1-4 did The Message, they captured a moment. And that's the difference. Create moments that go viral, not things that you aim to be viral for a moment. Does that make sense? I might have worded that really strangely, but it makes sense in my head. One step at a time, people. Expect to be in this music game 10 years before you get your music heard. Please have that mindset. And if it happens sooner, then celebrate. And if it doesn't, that's what you were expecting anyway. If you expect to blow up in 6 months, you're in the wrong game. Now, I know we're seeing a lot of artists do this. I know we're seeing a lot of artists actually get hundreds of thousands of views on their first song. But I promise you, people, if they don't stay consistent, if they're not in it for the right reasons, they're going to fall off equally as quick. As quickly as they blew up, as quickly as they got that attention, is as quick as it falls off. Because you've got to remember, people are there to check them out. Like, raw, who are these? But that's less of an affinity to keep them there when they then put out one bad song. If I follow an artist because they put out 8 years of amazing content, if they then make a bad album, I'm still going to be there after that. If they then put out a couple singles that I'm not feeling, I'm still going to be there after that because I have grown to be a part of their journey for the last 8 years. If you go viral, you know what? I don't want to go viral. I don't. I might be thankful, but I don't want that to happen. Because as quickly as people hop on that boat is as quick as they will jump off. I want people to follow my music because they care about my journey, my intent, my reasons why. They like my music because of the why, not the how. They don't care about me because of how big I am or how quickly I can trend. They care because why I'm doing this and what I'm saying. Yeah? Lost my train of thought again. Give me a moment, people. Let me compose. Because I'm all over the place with this. You might be able to tell. Being here with the why. That's it. If people find out about me because of one feature that I had or one song that I did and it popped off, it blew, fantastic, that then is so much pressure on the next step you take. I don't feel like I'm ready for that yet. I don't. And what you'll find is the people who blow up that quick, the amount of pressure they have to actually then follow that up is incredible. This is why I show so much respect to 1-4, because they had their moment where they blew up and they have kept that run going so far. So far at this point in time, they have kept that momentum. Do you know how fucking difficult that is? There's artists, even in the Aussie scene, let's say their first song got 5 million views. Notice how their views are slowly going down. And I know that's bad to pull the numbers game. But just notice how less and less relevant they may become until another banger comes out. So unless you are that kind of artist that can pull banger after banger out of your pocket, expect to be in this for the long haul. Because it's not so easy. You know, there are artists like Fraksha, who has had bangers, who has had a couple of those big moments, but that was surrounded by bodies, by masses of content. So that if Frax does do a bad verse, or if Fraksha doesn't do the greatest freestyle, he pops up next week and he goes again. There's less pressure on those mistakes. And I'd say that's a huge thing. I honestly think that is a huge thing. Because being honest with you, most people, if not all people listening to this podcast right here, listening to this point in time right now, you're not that artist. You're not good enough to pull banger after banger. IAmChazza, at this point in time, on the 10th of August, 2020, am not good enough to pull banger out after banger. Not that I'm aware of anyway. So I'm not going to aim to pull out banger after banger. Now, I know some people will say, yeah, but Blame Game and then, or Pennies, then Barras, then Blame Game, then Skinny Legend, yeah, that's banging. But, you know, there's a difference between good music and viral moments. Okay, so I would rather consistently put out good music, in my opinion, and to what my fans and to what you guys think is good music. I'd rather focus on that than trying to reach the world. I would rather cater, I would rather please the audience I currently have instead of consistently trying to grab new people in. Because by focusing on the people who are already there, you will organically bring other people over. That's what I have seen from watching other artists. As Shadow once said, I am sweating my dot off. It's... Alexa, what's the weather like?
Right now in Holloway, it's 34 degrees Celsius.
34 degrees and I've got the windows shut. This is not prime... You know what I'm saying? Windows closed. Fan off. T-shirt on. 34 degrees, people. I know some of you may laugh that off in Australia, but here, that's not applicable, my friend. But we keep it moving. I want to get onto two pieces of advice that I want to give. I agree with both points that Seru made, and I agree with Fraksha's point 100%. So I'm going to try and give two more, just to add different points to the table. And next one is going to be the biggest, and then the fifth one I'll only touch on briefly, even though that's a whole nother conversation in itself. Tip number 4, are we on now? Topic number 4. Practice. People, practice. Don't just make new music, put it out and forget about it. No, learn your lyrics. Please, I urge you guys to practice before you put a song out. When if you are someone like me who actually writes your lyrics before you go studio, because some people write it at studio or freestyle in the studio. If you're like, probably what most people do, like myself, you write it and you practice it before you go and record it. Because I'm not rich. I can't afford to spend 8 hours in the studio a day. I can't. So I book my couple of hours, I go and I do my thing. There was a time and place where I used to save up money to go for 1 hour. And in that 1 hour, it needs to be recorded and mixed, which means I can't afford to do multiple takes. I've got to go studio and 1 or 2 take it. That's the honest truth. And when I look back at some of my oldest music, I'm like, I so wish I could just record it again, because you can hear mistakes in the music. You can hear me mess up a bar or not say something the right way or just get the flow a little bit off. But where I didn't have time, it was like, yeah, just mix it in time. That's the honest truth. And there might be other people who are the same. If you have the luxury of recording from home or a friend's house where you don't have to pay them, please take time. Please practice your verse. I've said this a couple times before and I'll say it here. You can hear when an artist is reading their lyrics off of their phone or off the page. You can hear that, in my opinion. There is a difference between spitting your lyrics and reading it off of your phone and just knowing it in your head. I do my very best to go into studio and spit them off the top of my head. I find that I put way more emphasis and emotion into it. I find that I deliver it in a more smoother and natural way. I find that I hit the pockets better. I also find that I sound less monotone and robotic. I notice such a difference when I'm able to spit a freestyle off the top of my head. And it's why I feel like my best pieces of music ever is when I perform them live. Because there's just something different about that energy, that one moment that you have to nail. I live for that. I don't like doing takes over and over again. Because I know with me, I will then want to do it too many times. I just know I'm like that. So practice. Practice and know your verse. My engineer at Hit Run Studios, right? He says it. People book studio time, they come in and they don't even know what they want to do, which is fine. But then they're trying to rush they're writing lyrics last minute and then can't get it done. If you're not an artist who naturally, organically works like that, learn it. He said about, like, when I did the Hit Run freestyle, right? He said he's had people come in and they've not been able to finish the freestyle because they keep forgetting their lyrics. I get frustrated when I listen to a Fire in the Booth or I watch a Fire in the Booth and I see people reading off their phone. I get so frustrated at that. I get so frustrated. Yes, there's the kind of the pride thing of an MC should know their lyrics off the top of their head, but it's more so because I know that performance could be so much better without it. So much better without the phone in front of you. Look at 5 of your favorite freestyles. I guarantee at least 4 of them, the person doesn't have their phone in front of them. They had to learn that shit. Now, let's speak on behalf of just getting better. Better as an MC or an artist. I come from grime. In grime, you have to go radio. You have to clash. You have to do ciphers. You have to, at the very least, spit your lyrics live in front of people. That requires knowing your bars inside and out. I could spit certain verses in 5 different ways and change the flow 3 different ways, depending on what beat I got given. You know why? Because I know those verses inside out. So when I spit them verses, they're my go-to verses. They're my go-to 16s and 24s and 32s and 96s. They are my go-to lyrics because I know them inside and out. It's almost like training in martial arts or self-defense. Practice. So that if you get jumped, you are there to defend yourself. Practice your lyrics, guys, so that when someone goes, yo, I'm an artist, have you got any bars? I'd love, you know what? Show me what you got. You're ready. Also, when you bump into one of your favorite artists, if you really want to go that far, yo, look, I can spit right now. Have confidence. Like, don't send your freestyle to me and go, yeah, but by the way, it's because I don't know it, because it's rough. An artist don't want to hear that. If you want to collab with someone, if you want to put your shit out to the world, you've got to do it with confidence. How are you going to do it with confidence when you're like, yeah, but I had a bit of a sore throat and these are new bars and they're just throwaways? No! Practice your shit and say, look, this is the best I've fucking got. Because people are more likely to respect it than if you start making excuses for yourself. So don't allow one of those excuses to be, I wasn't prepared or I wasn't ready. So what? You're prepared to be a successful artist, but you're not prepared to learn your 16s off by heart. Fuck out of here, man. Like, see where I'm coming from, people? Practice your shit, because some people sound sick in the studio and they go to perform it live and they freeze up. Or they start forgetting. Now, I will say, I've had a performance like that where I was like, yo, my mind just went blank. But I had enough in me, enough experience to at least then freestyle different lyrics on the spot. Or be able to take that half a bar pause, catch myself and go again. Because it's like, no, you do know this. And that's the difference. If I didn't practice my lyrics, I would have had that little choke, that little stumble, and then had to have cut the song or start again. But it was stumble, wait, no, you know where you're at, boom, and cut yourself back in and continue going. And I've talked about that. If you listen to any, if you watch any of my reactions to any cyphers or freestyles or radio sets, you'll see me point that out sometimes. When an artist stumbles, whether they can catch themselves and keep going, or whether they just, their heads are gone. And that's the difference between an artist who practices their lyrics, who part of that may be handling that pressure and living up to that moment. I live for the moment. So if I ever have had a stumble like that, it's like, no, this is your moment. This is your 8 Mile shit. Every time I perform, it's that 8 Mile story. So it's like, no, make sure this works. But you've got to practice for that to happen, man. Practice is a big, big thing in this game. 100% people. The last point I want to get onto is in relation to promo and arguably money. It's a tough subject because I don't want to shit on it. And I know a lot of artists do because I feel like these things are good. But I feel like it's just oversaturated. And what I'm talking about is Oz rap promo pages or UK drill IG.media.fucking.org. I don't care. Some of these pages are amazing. They share a wide variety of music within the scene. They give backstories, perhaps written interviews, behind the scenes photos, just sharing people's content, just letting people know when new music's dropping. Some people charge people to have promo put up on their page. I think I have an issue with this. The reason for this is then you get somebody who oftentimes ends up being a whole load of fucking bollocks getting shared on these pages. Now, the reason I want to argue against that is because a podcast like this is to support all of the people who are at that tier 5 or 4 level, maybe even a level 3, I don't know, that are just looking advice, just looking for tips, just maybe just trying to soak in information on how to perhaps better themselves as an artist. And we're trying to use the resources we have available to us within our time and our budget that we can't get without a label. Because when Warner signs you and Sony signs you and whoever signs you, you've got money at your resources, you've got a team, etc, etc. When you're trying to do this by yourself, when you're like me, you've not even got a manager, you are doing everything yourself, you're trying to look at ways to help yourself grow. People. In my opinion, and this is only my opinion, and maybe an established artist may find a counter argument to this, and I'd love to have this. Is definitely going to be a full discussion one day. Definitely, I might even make this my next podcast episode. In my opinion, for the most part, let's say 70% I'm against it, 30% I'm with. 70% against me is against these Ozrap promo pages because that promo you're paying for oftentimes doesn't even bring you new people in. People say, yo, Chaz, can you react to my video because I want to get more fans? Now, yes, you might. But you've got to make good music first. And if you're making good music, people should be finding out about your page anyway without you having to pay for that promo. I believe, personally, that $50 that you're spending for that Instagram story would be better spent on either more equipment, more money towards a video shoot, or more studio time. I would much rather put out a freestyle on my channel over somebody else's more time than not. Once upon a time, yes, putting it out on these medium platforms, in the UK's example, like GRM, Link Up TV, SBTV, JDZ, etc., is a benefit. And I still say there is a benefit to a certain extent. But ultimately, there is nothing stopping you from putting out a banging song on your own channel. This is nothing against the No One Networks, Body Bag Medias, Hustle Hard TV, THC. Nothing against any of those. Because those platforms allow people to discover artists who may have never been discovered before. I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but don't rely on them. Don't think just because your song's going up on that platform, it's going to blow and you're going to get a mass audience. You've got to make good music first, people. So I would much rather reinvest that money into making better music or better quality music. Certain people are trying to record songs on their fucking phone, on their phone mic, but then they want to put it up on one of these channels. Or they want to put it on this Instagram page. No, reinvest that money to have a professional sounding track. Pay for studio instead and put it out on your own social media. Put it out on your own channel. Because you are more likely to bring in an audience that way versus a low quality shit song or freestyle that you've paid somebody else to put up. Invest in yourself. Now, just to be clear, I'm going to round this off. It is not exceptionally a bad thing to use other people's platforms to elevate yourself. But the most important thing you've got to remember is your music and the quality of your music determines what you then bring in. So until you feel confident in yourself that you're making quality fucking content, don't bother going to other platforms. That is my opinion. Now, if somebody who runs a platform like that would like to argue and have that discussion, I'd love to have that conversation because I'm not necessarily sold on my own opinion. I am open to be persuaded otherwise. And like I said, I do definitely think there are benefits to putting your things up on pages like that. The problem is, just through human behavior, what I see, you may even see it yourself if you follow pages like this, you have to wade through a lot of shit before you find a gem. And oftentimes when you do find that gem, that one person that you like, oftentimes they're good enough to get organic reach on their own. They didn't need to put it up on that page. Now, that's a contradicting statement, but you wouldn't have found them if it weren't on that page. If it's good enough, I'm eventually going to find out about you. End of. But look, listen, I'm going to round off the podcast here because one, my throat is really sore. I need to drink water, not just lukewarm tea now. I want to round it off. There's so much more. I could probably do another 5. I could probably do a part 2. I might even do a part 2 to this podcast. I might bring in a guest to talk about this maybe. Feel free to check out Fraksha and Seru. Thank you for sending through your opinions, boys. I hit up 3 or 4 artists. They were 2 that replied straight away. So yeah, I appreciate them for sending through their opinions. And yeah, if you are an artist watching this video, put your piece of advice. If you are a fan, just put your perspective. Like, if you don't make music, you can still have a contribution. As a fan, what do you want to see from some of your underground upcoming artists? What do you think? How do you discover music? How do you like to take in music? What kind of content do you like to take in? Maybe by giving that perspective, maybe other people, that could be useful for the artist, vice versa. So, yeah, appreciate you, man, for watching this episode. Appreciate you, man, for sticking about for this podcast. If you did the entire way through, if you stuck about the entire way through the video, put in, I don't know, tell me why did the chicken cross the road joke. I don't fucking know. Anything you want, but look, on a serious note, appreciate you, man, for watching this video. Feel free to check out the Patreon. Shout out to the Patreon members, by the way. Shout out to the Patreon members that have been over there supporting. I've started doing reactions over there now. for the people who are at a certain tier, so I can then do their reaction requests, and they're exclusively going up on Patreon. So if you want to check out the archive as they start going up and request your own, feel free to pledge over on Patreon. I really do appreciate all of the people that have joined over there. But yeah, my throat is absolutely killing me, people. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And yeah, I'll talk to you, man, later.